young woman Sarah made the decision to return to her family's old home, nestled on the edge of a forest just outside of town. This centuries-old mansion had not seen her presence in many years. However, following the passing of her family, she felt it was time to return. As Sarah arrived at the home, she unlocked the door to this magical place that held memories of her childhood, yet something was different. A strange sensation washed over her. Lights flickered, strange noises emanated from the ceilings, and the dreams she had felt almost real. On her first night, Sarah retired to her bedroom. However, throughout the night, she heard faint, eerie noises coming from the walls. She quickly swung open her bedroom door, but no one was to be seen. These odd sounds disturbed her, but she tried to sleep regardless. For several days, strange occurrences continued in the house. Objects moved on their own, doors would open and close by themselves. Sarah began to dismiss these happenings as mere products of her imagination. But then, things took a darker turn. One morning, while looking into the bathroom mirror, she noticed someone else's reflection beside her own. Panic gripped her as she stared at the unfamiliar face in the mirror, but it vanished as quickly as it had appeared. She frantically roamed the house, but found no one. Sarah no longer felt safe inside the house. She decided to seek help outside, but the door was locked and wouldn't budge. Whatever was inside refused to let her go. Sarah was determined to rid the house of these strange occurrences. She quickly turned to her computer to research the history of the Through her investigation, she discovered that the house had been visited by a psychic in the past, whose energy had tainted it and left a lasting mark. This psychic had the ability to harm guests, and that ability had altered the house's spirit. Sarah, determined to break the curse on the house, gathered her friends and returned to confront it. This time, she attempted to communicate with the spirits, imploring them to leave the house peacefully and allow their souls to rest. Initially resistant, the spirits eventually relented, departing the house one by one. The once heavy atmosphere in the house began to lift. Finally, the door unlocked, and Sarah regained her freedom. She had succeeded in cleansing the house, but she no longer wished to stay. Sarah had regretted her return and never visited the house again. Sarah felt a sense of relief as she left the house behind. However, the experience had left its mark on her, and she still had unanswered questions. Why had the house been plagued by such strange events, and who had attempted to disrupt its psychic energy? She sought help from a friend and began to gather more information about the house's past. Through her research, she learned that previous owners of the house had fallen victim to a fraudulent psychic who had cursed it and still haunted its spirit. Sarah was determined to set things right, to cleanse the psychic energy and bring peace to the house. Sarah returned to her family's old home. This time she was better prepared, having devised a more powerful ritual to appease and remove the psychic energy from the house. Upon opening the door, she was still greeted by the eerie noises and images, but Sarah was more resolute than ever. She initiated her ritual and began to transform the energy within the house. Gradually, the tension dissipated, and all psychic entities quietly disappeared. Sarah felt the house was finally at peace. However, this time, it held a deeper significance for her. She saw the house not only as a family legacy, but as a symbol of her triumph over the unknown. Years passed, and Sarah viewed the family's old home not just as a house, but as a cherished family legacy. It had become a haven of peace for those who resided within it. Sarah had learned to control the psychic energy, creating an environment of serenity and love. As Sarah left the house behind, she was filled with a sense of relief. However, the experience had left its mark on her, and she still had unanswered questions. Why had such strange events occurred in the house, and who had attempted to disrupt its psychic energy? She sought help from a friend and began gathering more information about the house's past. Through her research, she learned that previous owners of the house had fallen victim to a fraudulent psychic who had cursed it and still haunted its spirit. Sarah was determined to set things right, to cleanse the psychic energy and bring peace to the house. Sarah returned to her family's old home. This time, she was better prepared, having devised a more powerful ritual to appease and remove the psychic energy from the house. Upon opening the door, she was still greeted by eerie noises and images, but Sarah was more resolute than ever. She initiated her ritual and began to transform the energy within the house. Gradually, the tension dissipated, and all psychic entities quietly disappeared. Finally, the door unlocked, and Sarah regained her freedom. She had succeeded in cleansing the house, but she no longer wished to stay. Sarah had regretted her return and never visited the house again. With Sarah's cleansing of the house and the restoration of its peace, the old mansion seemed to come back to life. There were no longer any psychic entities inside, and the house had transformed into more than just a dwelling. It had become a sanctuary and refuge. Years passed, and Sarah no longer saw the house as just a living space. She had become its guardian and caretaker. She had turned it into a source of serenity for its inhabitants. However, the house still held a mysterious atmosphere, acting as a bridge between its past and future. One evening, Sarah found herself alone in the house. As she gazed out of a window, she noticed a shadow standing outside under the moonlight. The shadow became clearer as it approached the front of the house and then entered. Sarah felt the presence of a being inside. As she made her way toward her room, she began to hear faint music emanating from the house. She followed this mysterious melody wherever it led her. Finally, as she reached the center of the house, she found the source of the music. In the middle of the house, there stood an antique piano, seemingly playing on its own. Sarah hesitated before touching the piano keys. However, she sensed that the piano was being played by a presence from another realm. As she touched the piano keys, The rhythm and tone of the enigmatic music changed. The atmosphere inside the house grew even more tense, and shadows around her began to dance. Sarah felt captivated by the enchantment of the piano. Suddenly, the piano keys started to play on their own. Sarah, taken aback, withdrew, but the piano continued to play. The music told a story with passion and fervor, as if the piano had a tale of its own to share. When the story concluded, the piano fell silent, and the tension within the house dissipated. Sarah stood before the piano, her eyes filled with tears. It was as if the house had spoken to her through the mesmerizing music, revealing a profound mystery at its core. This final piano piece represented a connection to the house's past and future, a riddle that only Sarah, as its new guardian, had come to understand and appreciate. And so, with an enigmatic conclusion, the house continued to live on as both a story and a legacy.